Good evening and welcome to the bar. Following on from our last chat, it is probably time that I divulge the secrets of that most inimitable of drinks, the martini. Tonight I'll be making you the perfect martini. First, take a martini glass and chill. Now take your cocktail shaker and fill it with ice. Then add a double measure of gin. Add a half measure of dry vermouth and a half measure of sweet vermouth. Now stir thoroughly. We'll get to that in a minute, Mr. Bond. Now strain into the martini glass. And serve with a garnish of lemon peel. Cheers. Delightful. Perfect, you might say. The martini is quite a versatile cocktail. As long as you don't mind a strong, short drink, there are a multitude of variations. The perfect martini has a sweetness to it, but you get less of the gin flavour. A dry martini can be anything from a floral celebration of your vermouth to some gin waved in the general direction of Italy, the kind Churchill and Noel Coward enjoyed. And finally, if you're paranoid about being poisoned, you can go for the shaken, not stirred version, the Vesper Martini, that packs a veritable punch as it combines both gin, vodka, and dessert wine. How did this classic cocktail come to be? As is usual in the history of cocktails, the exact origin is fuzzy, much like my head after a few martinis. One theory is that it was adapted from a drink called the Martinez. This was named for a town in California that either was the home of the drink or a place people were ferried to after waiting at a hotel. A mixture of bitters, maraschino, gin and vermouth, it is quite different from the modern martini. Another drink that might stake a claim to being the martini's primogeniture comes from Harry Johnson's Bartender's Manual. This recipe was a mix of sugar syrup, bitters, curacao, gin and vermouth, and is equally quite different from our modern-day dry martini. The first true martini was developed in the Knickerbocker Hotel in New York sometime between 1911 and 1912, and it was based on a recipe from 1904 that had a mix of 2 parts Plymouth gin to 1 part dry vermouth, with a dash of orange bitters. As mentioned in my episode on gin, the martini is an excellent way to enjoy the spirit. For those who dislike gin, you can have the vodka martini instead, which was very popular in the late 90s. Going back to an even older visit to the bar, you can hear me discuss the Vesper Martini, which mixes both gin and vodka, as Felix Leiter called it, some drink. And that brings us to the quintessential question, shaken or stirred? Now, Mr. Bond purportedly orders his drinks in this manner so that poison cannot be added. Or so I have heard. Investigating it further, it seems this is more likely the preference of his creator, Ian Fleming, than any particular piece of spycraft. So how should you make your martini? There is some suggestion that shaking the drink bruises the gin, making the drink bitter. It is also true that shaking will cool the drink faster and likely leads to a colder cocktail than stirring would. This may also lead in turn to a more watered down drink, which is often not what the connoisseur is looking for in a martini. It does appear that vodka in the 1960s would have been oilier than modern vodka, and that shaking may have served to disperse the oil. Either way, it seems it is mostly down to personal preference. Personally, I shake my Vesper martinis, but stir all the others. Well, what type of martini would you like mixed? Shaken or stirred? After all, I don't mind either way. Of course. Well, sip that slowly and enjoy. And remember, always drink responsibly. Dr. Wilko's Campaign for Better Beverages is a production of Tinker Tailor Soldier Sponge Productions. It was researched, written and produced by Dr. Wilko. The cocktails were mixed by Dr. Wilko and drunk by Dr. Wilko. The music was George Street Shuffle, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3 by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. You can support this podcast on Patreon via the show notes and the website drwilko.org/Patreon. You can find all of the show notes at drwilko.org/podcast/26.